You know that feeling, right? When you're in a conversation and it just clicks. It flows. You feel totally seen, totally heard. And then there are the other ones, the conversations that are just painful, awkward, where you feel like you're on two different planets. Well, the gap between those two experiences, it isn't luck or magic. It's a skill. And we're about to break down the secret language that these supercommunicators use to connect. I love this quote from George Bernard Shaw because it hits the nail on the head. This is the core problem, right? We walk away from a conversation thinking we connected, thinking we were understood, but really we were just talking at each other. It's an illusion, and it's why we can sometimes feel more alone after talking to someone. Seriously, think about it for a sec. If you just got some bad news or you're completely overwhelmed, who is that one person you'd call? The one you know will just get it without you having to explain everything. Whoever just popped into your head, that person is a super communicator. And the amazing thing is, what they do is something we can all learn. So what really happens when connection fails? The cost can be, well, incredibly high. To understand just how high, let's dive into a story where a single failed conversation had life or death stakes. Okay, so let's meet Jim Lawler. It's 1982, he's a young CIA officer, and his entire job is to recruit foreign spies. Just one problem. He was absolutely terrible at it. I mean, 2 years into the job, he had a 0% success rate. He was about to be fired.
So he gets one last chance. He meets a woman we'll call Yasmin, a diplomat from a hostile nation. She's the perfect target. He spends months building what he thinks is rapport, dinners, sightseeing, the whole deal. And then his boss gives the order. It's time. He has to make the pitch, tell her he's CIA, and ask her to betray her country, an act that could literally get her killed.
So Lawler lays it all out. The mission, the danger, everything. And her reaction? It's an absolute disaster. As he put it, she started crying, and I knew I was screwed. She wanted nothing to do with him. The whole operation was a catastrophe. So what on earth went wrong? Lawler's failure wasn't just bad luck. He was missing something fundamental about connection. A simple, core principle that honestly most of us overlook in almost every single conversation we have. It's called the matching principle. Here's the deal. Neuroscientists have found that when we really connect with someone, our brain waves, our breathing, our heart rates, they literally start to sync up. But that synchronization can't happen unless we are on the same page, having the same kind of conversation at the same time. And it turns out pretty much all our conversations boil down to one of two types. There are practical conversations, the ones about making decisions, solving problems. They ask, what's this really about? And then there are emotional conversations. They're about how we feel. If one person is in practical mode and the other is in emotional mode, you're not matching. You're not going to connect. Period. And this mismatch? Oh man, it happens everywhere. Think about it. You've been there. Your friend or your partner is telling you about their horrible day, and you immediately jump in with solutions. You're trying to fix it. You're having a practical talk. But they just wanted you to say, wow, that sounds awful. They were having an emotional talk. You weren't matching. This is a perfect and really powerful example. A cancer surgeon, Dr. Adai, would sit down with patients and have a very practical conversation. He'd show them data, charts, proving a treatment was 97% effective, but his patients, they were having a deeply emotional one. All they could hear was their own fear. They were stuck on that 3%. He was talking statistics, they were talking about life and death. So why does this keep happening? Well, it's because these two conversations run on completely different operating systems in our brain. A practical talk uses the logic of costs and benefits. It's about analysis, data, plans. But an emotional talk uses the logic of similarities. It's searching for empathy, for shared stories, for someone who feels the same way. The two logics just don't compute together. The power of locking into an emotional conversation is so real. Researchers have shown you can actually engineer connection with it. There was this famous study, the Fast Friends procedure, and it used just 36 specific questions to turn total strangers into what felt like close friends, all in under an hour. And just look at the kinds of questions they ask. They're not asking for facts or resumes. They're asking for vulnerability. What's a perfect day? What's your most terrible memory? By asking questions that dig a little deeper and then sharing your own answers in return, the participants were perfectly matching each other's emotional state. They were building a bridge of shared feeling.
Okay, so how does this whole secret help our failed spy, Jim Lawler? Well, somehow, he convinces Yasmin to have one last dinner. This is it, his final chance to actually connect.
So they sit down, and Yasmin is clearly terrified. She's withdrawn, anxious. She's deep in an emotional state. Lawler, not knowing what to do, defaults to practical mode. He tries to cheer her up. He tells jokes, shares funny stories, trying to fix her mood. And it bombs. Completely. He isn't matching her at all. Then, in a moment of sheer desperation, Lawler shifts. He stops trying to be funny or impressive. He starts being vulnerable. He admits that he feels like a total failure as a spy, that he's terrified of getting fired, that he gets what it's like to feel lost. He matches her emotional conversation with his own raw emotions. And in that instant, everything changes. The connection is made. Because he showed his own vulnerability, she suddenly felt safe with him. They finally understood each other. She agreed to become his spy, and it was the start of a legendary career for him. So the big takeaway here is a simple 3-step process you can use like today. First, just pause for a second and ask yourself, what kind of conversation are we actually having? Then, listen for the clues. Are they talking about plans and data, or are they talking about feelings and fears? And finally, this is the most important part. Match them. If they're sharing a feeling, don't try to solve it. Acknowledge it, and maybe share one of your own. Look, this isn't about high-stakes spy games. This is about our everyday lives, our partners, our children, our friends, our coworkers. So the real question to walk away with is this. What kind of conversation, practical or emotional, does that person you care about most need to have with you today? Getting that answer right, well, it can change everything.